Today's discussion is on prolotherapy, a topic that I have a unique understanding of because I actually got prolotherapy in another part of my body before I ever got my neck instability, before I ever got it in my neck. So, let's talk a little bit about prolotherapy. What is it? I'm not going to talk about PRP or stem cells because I haven't had personal experience with them, so I'll leave them to somebody else. But prolotherapy, or the version that I had, is a dextrose-based solution, so it's a sugar, which is an irritant, and it causes a simulated injury to try and drive growth factors to the area, and what this ultimately does is often tighten up a ligament or a piece of fascia that has lost some tension. Okay, we understand a bit about what prolotherapy is now, if you didn't already. So, let's talk about my ankle injuries. I had chronic ankle injuries for a number of years, and I got the injuries to the medial, the inside of the ankle, which you actually shouldn't get because there's a very thick ligament there called the deltoid ligament. And essentially, if the deltoid ligament is going to break, something else should have broken or been damaged before it. It should be the last thing that gets injured in that system. But that's a story for another day, how that happened. Anyway, kept getting these deltoid ligament injuries and they wouldn't resolve. So naturally the next progression after, if rehabilitation fails, is to go and do prolotherapy. Now, I was getting prolotherapy and that seemed to put tension back into the ligament that was had completely lost all tension. That foot and ankle complex was completely unstable. So putting the tension back into the ligament with prolotherapy seemed to do an okay job at the time. However, hindsight has provided me some other information as to why it didn't fix the issue. As I went on, I kept getting these ankle injuries, and I'm like, the tension's back in, it feels better, but what was happening was that ligament was being tightened up by the prolotherapy, but that tension was not being incorporated back into the whole tensegrity network. I talk a lot about the fascia being one holistic, continuous tissue throughout the body. The tension that was lost was not added in to the tensegrity network by the prolotherapy, it was added in isolation, so that when my foot was trying to lock, when I was passing a ball or running and changing direction, making a tackle, the ankle was not locking correctly, and when even I wasn't trying to engage the foot, it was still not locking correctly or being held together correctly at rest. Of course, we're not trying to constantly hold our necks in a locked position. They should just be here. They should just be stable. And when we're moving, they should be able to move freely. And when we're just sitting, they should be able to hold their form. So this is a bit of an issue. And as I went on over a number of years, I kept getting these ankle injuries and kept getting more prolotherapy. Every few months it would wear off and I would just have to get another injection and get another injection. And this got quite expensive. It was adding up quite a lot, and I was even going to one of the best sports medicine doctors in Australia who attends personally to the professional players in the A-League, which is our soccer league, and in the AFL, Australian Rules Footy, and in the rugby, and in the netball. He was attending to everyone. He was a part of a big sports medicine clinic, and this was what he could come up with. If rehabilitation is not working, you should use the prolotherapy, and if that doesn't work, use an ankle brace, which you can't do in soccer. So essentially what he was saying is that he didn't have an answer to my problem. Prolotherapy now, after working with Chong and understanding this, is potentially going to address and attend to some of the fascia that has lost tension. But as I said, it's not going to incorporate that back into the tensegrity network, into the whole structure. It's not going to build lost connections. If you've had connections that have been damaged, it's not going to repair those. It's not going to create new connections across multiple joints. If we think about our necks are being held together by this tensegrity network of the fascia, but it's being held together across multiple vertebrae, across multiple joints, bones, muscles, incorporating, permeating through the whole system. Prolotherapy is not going to create new connections and remodel the neck. It might fix some damage in a localized area, but even then, like with my ankle, it's not going to incorporate that back into the whole system. That's the limitation of prolotherapy. Now, I got prolotherapy on my neck. My health trajectory was just rapidly going downhill, and prolotherapy actually had a benefit in terms of it stopped me going downhill. It didn't improve me. I wasn't still getting worse. It didn't totally not work, but it stopped me at a point. So it showed some benefit. I think it has very good application, especially for those people that cannot do exercise, that cannot do these other things. Potentially, it's the thing that might just get you to a point where then you can then jump slightly up a rung on the ladder and do the next protocol that's just a bit hard or just above that. So I think there is a time and a place for prolotherapy, but I can see the limitations in terms of talking about creating connections, creating stability in a system. And as I said, I think it can be very beneficial for those people that may be in a neck brace, that can't do exercises like the ones that I've shown, and therefore I think the work that I did with Chong is very beneficial for the point that I was at. But if there's somebody that's at a worse condition than me physically, maybe it's part of their step to get to the point where they can do the rehabilitation, where they can actually start to create these new connections. So I'm not denying that it's completely useless, or I'm not saying that it's completely useless. I'm not denying that it doesn't have a role to play. I think it absolutely does. But in terms of thinking about, is it going to fix the overall issue? Is it going to resolve the issue? My ankle story maybe paints a picture that no, it's not going to, and that it did wear off for me, and that it's not fixing the underlying cause of the problem, it's just covering it up for a short period of time. But maybe that's what you need, or maybe that's what I needed, in order to then be able to go to the next protocol, which is going to be the thing that's going to get me over the line at the end of the day.